Worse Than Death is a 2D pixel art action-adventure puzzle game developed by Benjamin Rivers and released for pretty much everything in October of 2019. The game sees you playing as Holly, a young woman who is returning to her hometown in order to attend her school reunion. However, as is often the case with school reunions, someone is found disemboweled, and thus begins a terrifying hunt to find the person responsible. From the very small handful of reviews I was actually able to find for the game, Worse Than Death seemed to be received pretty positively, with a number of critics finding the puzzles enjoyable and the story interesting. I chose to review Worse Than Death not only because it's quite an enjoyable puzzle game, but also because there are very few actual reviews for the game out there, and I think it deserves more attention. So let's take a look at Worse Than Death and see if it's really as bad as its name implies. Spoiler alert, it isn't. There's only one thing actually worse than death. Every single moment of my fucking life. Worse Than Death begins with Holly driving her car through the woods on a snowy night. Eventually, she reaches a cozy looking bar and heads inside. She has a quick conversation with the bartender before meeting up with her old friend Flynn. Flynn's fiancée Grace tragically died in a car crash several years ago, and the event caused him to become distant and push people away, including Holly. However, it seems that in the years since Grace's death, Flynn has been able to move on and put the past behind him, since he appears to be in good spirits whilst conversing with Holly. However, it's easy to tell that Holly has something on her mind that she really wants to tell Flynn. That will all have to wait, however, since they have a school reunion to attend. It doesn't take long for Holly to bump into some old acquaintances once she arrives at the reunion. You can tell that she probably didn't have the easiest time in high school, since many of the people she converses with seem like genuinely unlikable pieces of shit. After some time, Holly realizes that she hasn't seen Flynn in a while, so she heads off to look for him. This leads her to finding the dead body of a man who also attended the high school around the same time as Holly. 90% of the time, Worse Than Death uses a very basic pixel art style for most of its gameplay. However, during puzzles and certain cutscenes, the game adapts a more hand-drawn comic book art style that actually suits the game very well. It can be jarring going between 8-bit pixel art and high-quality hand-drawn art, but the game mostly pulls it off. Surprisingly, Worse Than Death doesn't shy away from showing generous amounts of blood and gore, which might put some people off. Despite what its cutesy art style might suggest, Worse Than Death is not a game for kids. Holly is understandably disturbed by what she has just seen, and realizes she has to find Flynn and get the hell out of the school as soon as possible. While attempting to find her way out of the place, Holly bumps into this very strange creature. It looks like a man in a fish suit. It's not scary at all, to be honest. He kinda looks like that thing from the Like a Boss music video. The creature will kill Holly if it catches her, so she must hide every time it appears. Honestly, sneaking past the creature is pretty easy. You just need to find a hiding spot, wait for the creature to pass by, and then move on. It really is that simple, and never evolves over the course of the game. Holly can't find Flynn in the school, so she figures he must have also made a run for it. She sets off to find him, and that's about all I want to spoil about the story here. Worse Than Death's story is an enjoyable enough mystery, even if it is full of plot holes and unexplained events. For example, throughout the game, the player will encounter dozens of sudden jump scares. These range from a mirror smashing itself to a TV turning itself on. We never learn what is causing these supernatural events to occur. We also never discover what this creature is or where it came from. I have my theories as to what this monster is meant to represent, but the game never gives the player any kind of clue as to what the fuck this thing actually is. Worse Than Death is a relatively short game, clocking in at around 2 hours to complete, but thankfully it never outstays its welcome. It's also very well paced, constantly flinging you from one new environment to the next. Level design is also great for the most part. Most areas in the game are very linear, but every now and again you'll be given more freedom to explore your current surroundings. These chapters play more like something out of a Metroidvania or old school survival horror game, and it's a very welcome change of pace. My favourite aspect of Worse Than Dead are its numerous puzzles, with many of them being very cleverly designed and enjoyable to solve. There are dozens of these puzzles in the game, and none of them were a chore to solve. They actually reminded me a lot of the logic puzzles you'd find in a Resident Evil game. Overall, Worse Than Dead is an enjoyable puzzle game with occasional moments of effective horror. I found the hide and seek sections more annoying than scary, but thankfully those moments don't make up a lot of the game. Puzzles were fantastically designed and the story was enjoyable nonsense. If you ever see the game on sale, I would say it's worth picking up. My final score is a 7 out of 10.